Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we've got a really fascinating stack of sources. Not the usual dense reports or, historical texts. It's something that looks deceptively simple.
It does. It's a detailed, sequential look at one person's daily habits. This was apparently shared for language learning, of all things.
Right, and this person is named Adam. But when you start to peel back the layers of his day, you find this rich blueprint of behavioral science.
Absolutely. So our goal here isn't just to summarize his day. It's to really look at Adam's routine and pull out the fundamental structure of an intentional life.
Exactly. We're looking for the architecture behind an effective routine. The mission today is to give you a shortcut to understanding how these small repeated actions become really powerful anchors in your day.
And this narrative is just perfect for that. I mean, what's so fascinating is how the sources reveal two critical ideas at the same time.
Okay.
First, you have the power of sequential habits, where finishing one tiny action cues the next one. And second, the really insightful use of adverbs of frequency.
Words like always, usually, sometimes.
Precisely. They're not just grammar.
Yeah.
They define the exact level of consistency you need for a routine to actually work. They are cognitive instructions.
Okay, let's unpack this then. Let's start right at the beginning, at the bedrock of Adam's day, the morning anchor.
The critical first habit.
Yes. The sources are so precise here. Adam wakes up at 7 o'clock sharp. No snoozing, no gray area. But the very first thing he does before he's even fully upright, he stretches his body and he forces himself to smile.
And those two actions, they're critical micro habits. They cost almost zero willpower. You can think of them as an immediate positive feedback loop that's designed to hijack the start of the day.
Why are they so important scientifically? I mean, smiling when you're still half asleep, it feels a little manufactured, doesn't it?
It does, but that's the whole trick. You're deliberately initiating a change in your state. When you first wake up, your cortisol levels, that's the stress hormone, they're rising to get you ready for the day. Stretching and smiling, even if it feels artificial, it sends these signals back to your brain, to your limbic system, that suggests a moment of safety and success. You're basically banking a cognitive win before the real work even starts.
So it's about generating positive momentum.
Exactly. It sets the tone. It says, I am in control of my start.
Okay, so right after those internal cues, he moves to physical structure, making the bed. That simple action declares, my first task is done. And then the sequence gets hyper-specific, which is a key detail for you to notice. It's not just hygiene. It's brushing his teeth and specifically washing his face with cold water.
And that specificity is a critical friction reducer. Adam doesn't wake up and decide to be productive. He just executes an established, highly specific checklist. He eliminates all the ambiguity.
And the cold water.
The cold water is not just a physical shock, it's a powerful sensory cue.
Wow.
It stimulates the vagus nerve, which immediately tells the brain that the transition from sleep state to active state is, complete.
I feel like a lot of productivity advice focuses on the big first win, like go to the gym or something. But Adam's wins, the smile, the bed, the cold water, they're tiny.
They are.
Does the scale of the win actually matter that much?
Not nearly as much as the sequence. If you can control the first 5 minutes of your day with these non-negotiable small wins, you build self-efficacy. You feel more capable of handling the rest of the day's complexity.
I see. So these tiny actions are the foundation for the rest of the routine.
They're the foundation on which everything else sits.
Then we get to his fuel routine, and this is where those frequency adverbs really become our behavioral blueprint. Adam always drinks a cup of coffee. That's a core non-negotiable habit.
Right.
But the sources note he only sometimes eats bread and eggs.
And that distinction, that little shift from always to sometimes, that is the secret sauce for preventing routine burnout. The coffee is the anchor. It's a consistent, required input.
So he knows he can rely on that.
He knows he can rely on that constant. But if he had to cook a full breakfast every single day, that level of rigidity would add friction, and eventually it would lead to failure.
So he's built structure, but without sacrificing adaptability. He saves his willpower by making only the coffee mandatory. The food is a choice, depending on his hunger or his schedule that morning.
Precisely. If we're trying to apply this, we shouldn't aim for 10 always items before noon. We should aim for 1 or 2 key anchors, the non-negotiables, and let the rest be usually or sometimes.
That makes perfect sense. Okay, let's talk about the first major transition of the day.
Yeah.
Leaving the house. This happens at 8 o'clock. Adam walks to the bus stop, and here's a detail that seems mundane, but I think it's huge. He takes the same bus every day.
Oh, that is absolutely huge. If we connect this to the bigger picture of cognitive load. Adam is strategically eliminating decision fatigue.
But is waiting for a different bus really a huge decision? We make thousands of decisions a day.
True, but think of your mental energy as a finite battery. Every small choice, which route to take, which bus is faster today, it drains a tiny bit of that charge.
Okay.
Adam has automated the entire transition. Taking the same bus means he doesn't spend a single second worrying about logistics. He saves that mental resource for, the actual work.
So use routine to save your mental energy for what actually matters.
Exactly.
And what does he do during that structured commute time? He listens to music. The source calls this his favorite habit.
This is a textbook example of habit stacking done right. He's taking a necessary structure, the commute, which is often tedious, and he's embedding a rewarding personal routine right inside it.
So the music is a small reward that's baked into the journey.
It's a positive reinforcement that makes the required act of going to work more appealing.
And when he finally gets to work, the launch sequence is just as clear. The ritual is sit at desk, turn on computer, check emails.
Notice how linear that is. There's no ambiguity about where to start. Think about how many people start their workday by just, meandering, getting lost on social media, feeling overwhelmed.
Right, the what should I do first problem.
Exactly. Adam has a clear, repeatable, three-step launch sequence. The routine defines the start, and that dramatically reduces the cognitive load needed to actually begin the work period, which lasts until 12.
Okay, moving into the midday rhythm. At lunchtime, he usually eats with his coworkers. They talk and laugh together. Again, that word usually keeps the flexibility, but the core idea is social.
And that is a deep point about the nature of a real break. What's fascinating here is that the lunch habit isn't defined by the food. It's defined by the socialization.
So it's not just about refueling.
No, it highlights the important role of connection in keeping a routine going long term. The break is a holistic recharge. It's mental decompression, communication, emotional connection.
And speaking of slumps, right after lunch, Adam drops this really honest detail. He admits, after lunch, I feel a little tired, but I keep working.
Wait, I love that line. We tend to think a perfect routine eliminates all friction or fatigue. This admission, it raises a huge question. Why would a source about good habits admit to the 2 p.m. crash?
Because it makes the whole thing relatable. I always thought if my routine was perfect, I wouldn't feel that post-lunch slump. This is almost a relief to hear.
It is. The significance here is that the routine is strong enough to allow for persistence, even with a temporary lack of energy. The structure itself is the scaffolding that stops a minor slump from derailing the whole day.
He's not relying on motivation. He's relying on the momentum from the routine.
That's it. He just keeps the sequence going.
Okay, let's transition into the evening, the wind down. He goes home, and the very first thing he does, the immediate transition habit, is he changes his clothes. Then he relaxes on the sofa.
That habit, changing clothes, it's the psychological equivalent of a decontamination ritual, and it's critical.
We talk so much about the morning routine, but the evening one gets overlooked.
It does. Changing out of work clothes is a physical cue to the brain that the professional role is officially over. It separates the cognitive space of work from the personal space of home.
And we see the frequency adverbs shift dramatically here. The morning was rigid with always. The evening is flexible. He sometimes watches TV and he sometimes reads a book.
It perfectly illustrates structured flexibility for the part of the day where, rest and creativity are the priorities. Rigidity is for starting the engine. But once the hard tasks are done, flexibility ensures the wind down is actually enjoyable and sustainable.
So he has options for how he rests, which stops it from feeling like another chore.
Exactly.
And now we come to what is, I think, maybe the most powerful habit in the entire narrative, the final deliberate action before sleep.
The reflective wind down.
Before sleep, I make one last habit. I write in my notebook, I wrote one good thing about my day.
This is the emotional anchor, and it's the perfect bookend to the morning's stretch and smile. The whole day is framed by these intentional positive acts.
So by forcing himself to focus on one good thing, he's providing closure.
He is. He's providing mental and emotional closure. He's filing away the day's successful data point, making sure his subconscious doesn't spend all night processing lingering stressors or failures. He's closing the loop on his emotional state.
Priming his brain for restful sleep by ending on a positive note.
That intentional closing is just as important as the intentional start.
Okay, so let's synthesize what we've learned from the architecture of Adam's day. It's defined by these intentional bookends, making the bed as the first physical commitment and writing down one good thing as the last reflective one.
And let's revisit that linguistic insight from the source. Those adverbs I sometimes, they aren't just grammar, they're cognitive markers. They denote the precise level of commitment needed for each specific action.
So the source is basically using grammar to teach a productivity hack. How does usually save our willpower in a way always doesn't?
Well, if everything is in all these, the system eventually breaks because life, it throws variables at you. Right. When you call a task a usually, you are pre-approving the flexibility. You're giving yourself permission to skip it without abandoning the whole routine. Adam knows coffee is mandatory. Yeah. But by letting eggs be sometimes, he maintains control without demanding robotic consistency.
Structured flexibility, that's the secret to long-term adherence.
It is.
So what does this all mean for you, our listener? Applying this means identifying your own always habits, your cognitive anchors, especially during transitions, waking up, commuting, starting work, and winding down.
Right. Structure your transitions, and the rest of the day requires significantly less effort. The focus should be on building simple sequential actions. What's your cold water moment?
And what's your favorite habit you can stack onto a necessary transition?
And critically, what's your decontamination ritual that really separates work life from home life?
We've covered Adam's impressive architecture from, his commitment to working through that post-lunch slump to the predictability of the same bus route.
If we connect all this to the bigger picture, I think the real lesson is that consistency is built by sequencing simple, deliberate actions. Adam's day is effective not because of some grand, complicated project, but because he meticulously controls the micro steps that frame his entire experience.
And his day is explicitly bookended by positive, intentional actions, smiling and stretching when he wakes up, and writing one good thing before he sleeps. This raises a really important question for you to think about as you design your own daily structure. If you were designing your ideal day based on this model, what is the single, small, positive action, your piece of cognitive housekeeping, that you would choose as your absolute last habit before going to sleep?
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.
We'll see you next time.
Welcome to the deep dive. Often we look at these huge, sprawling topics.
Right. Global politics, massive scientific concepts.
Exactly. But today, we're doing something different. We're zooming all the way in.
So the micro level.
Yeah, we're looking at the micro narrative of just a single day. We're taking a very short, very simple story about one person's commute.
And turning it into a case study.
A case study in urban operational logistics. And maybe even more importantly, essential communication. So our source material is this brief little account we're calling Transportation Day. And it just follows one person moving through a city. They use, a few different ways to get around.
So our mission isn't just to list those, right?
Not at all. We want to dissect every single choice, every bus ride, every walk, every taxi.
To pull out the strategic knowledge.
The stuff you actually need to know to get around and communicate in any big city.
And I think this is a fantastic exercise because when you analyze a simple story like this, you get past just, what happened.
Right.
You start to identify the decision calculus, the thinking behind the actions.
Okay.
We're really looking for the blueprint, the model that lets someone just seamlessly switch between, say, a bus and a metro, or prioritize their time versus their own well-being.
It's about making the whole system work for you.
Exactly. Building resilience into your own day.
Right. Let's jump right in. Let's start with the first movement of the day.
The morning routine.
The fixed routines that really anchor everything. So the day starts with this critical little buffer, a pre-transit segment.
The walk.
Yeah, the source says it's a 5-minute walk to the bus stop, and we get this great little atmospheric detail.
The air is cool and quiet.
I love that. And this little walk, it's not a mistake in the planning, is it? It's part of the plan.
Oh, absolutely. We have to look at this walk not just as, getting from A to B. It's a tool for managing a transition.
A transition? How so?
Well, those 5 minutes, they create a boundary, a sort of a physical and a psychological buffer that separates your private space, your home, from the demanding public world of the commute.
It's a moment of low sensory input.
Cool and quiet, exactly, before the real operational hustle of the city kicks in.
And that leads to the next step, which establishes the fixed point in the whole system.
The timeline.
At 8:00, I take the bus to work. That one sentence tells us so much about their baseline planning.
It really does. It defines their acceptable risk profile. The 8 a.m. bus is the routine. It's the low-cost, high-reliability part of their daily system.
But the source immediately points out the risk, the variability.
Right, the bus is sometimes busy.
But not today. Today was calm.
Which just means the system is performing inside its normal expected parameters. The routine holds for now.
So the plan is executed successfully. And what they do during that successful execution is really telling. They're sitting by the window and they're actively watching people and cars on the street.
That passive observation. It sounds passive, but it's a key piece of the puzzle.
You think so?
Absolutely. They aren't just zoning out. They are engaging in what you could call environmental scanning.
Okay.
They're absorbing the state of the city's movement, traffic flow, how many people are on the sidewalks, potential friction points, all while, decompressing before they have to switch into work mode.
That's almost like a slow motion simulation of the day ahead.
That's a great way to put it.
If they were stuck in traffic, for instance, the whole calculus for the rest of the day might shift.
But because it's calm.
They have the mental bandwidth.
Yes.
Exactly. So this first leg, it sets up 3 crucial things for navigating a city effectively.
Which are?
1, you establish a reliable, time-dependent routine. 2, you build in these mandatory buffers like the walk. And 3, you use that passive travel time for awareness. It's all about getting to your destination with as little friction as possible.
Okay, so this is where it gets interesting. This is where we see that systems resilience get a real test.
The plan changes. It does. After just 10 minutes on that routine bus, they realize their destination has changed. They need to make an urgent, non-routine detour.
The bank. I need to visit the bank.
The central bank, specifically. So the routine has just failed. It can't serve the immediate need anymore.
And that failure immediately shifts their resource allocation model.
What do you mean by that?
Well, the system needs a backup. They had allocated their resources, their time and energy to the low-cost bus route. But this sudden, urgent need, it introduces a new variable. Time becomes critical.
So they pivot instantly. They swap the low-cost, low-speed public transit for
a premium, high-speed, direct solution.
They decide to take a taxi. What does a choice like that cost them, beyond just the fare?
Well, it costs them the comfort of the routine, but they gain maximum velocity and directness.
Right.
When time is the most critical resource, the taxi acts as the necessary system override. It just bypasses all the fixed routes and schedules.
And the communication is just as efficient. The driver is friendly, asks, "Good morning, where are you going?"
But the response is purely functional. To the central bank, please. No small talk.
It's a direct command. And the ride itself is noted as fast. So they've used this tactical intervention to manage a bottleneck.
And crucially, it gets their schedule back on track. But then the strategy shifts again once that time-sensitive task is done.
This is the part I find fascinating. They leave the bank, and instead of hailing another cab or finding a bus,
they choose to walk back to the office.
This intentional walk, it's so interesting. They're not on the clock anymore.
Not at all.
And the source gives us the motivation so clearly. The weather is nice, and walking helps me feel relaxed.
There it is, the priority shift.
From speed, from temporal efficiency.
The psychological well-being. And this is the essence of, sophisticated resource management.
How so?
They spent money on the taxi to save time, and now they're spending time by walking to save their own mental energy.
So the commuter stays in control.
They retain their agency. They adjust the mode of transport based on what the real priority is in that moment. It just shows that for a successful urban navigator, a journey isn't just about covering distance.
It's about managing your internal resources.
Exactly. They convert that travel time into self-care time.
All right, so let's move into the evening. The whole motivation for travel changes again.
Completely. Work is done.
Right. The commuter meets a friend for dinner, and they make a joint decision based on a shared feeling. They're both tired.
And being tired means you need sustained speed with minimal effort.
Which makes the metro the perfect choice.
It's high-speed mass transit.
Yeah.
It's designed to cover bigger distances quickly. And it's also interesting because this is the first really social part of the day's travel.
It is. And the metro's key features are listed as clean and fast. But the dynamic inside is so different from that morning bus ride. They stand near the door and talk about our day. The transport itself is being used to enable a social interaction.
They're optimizing for proximity and conversation, not for, looking out the window or quiet observation.
So the purpose of the journey shifts
from an observational one in the morning to a bonding one in the evening. And the metro, being so fast and predictable, it gives them this reliable little window of time for that social download.
And it gets them close to home. But there is one final leg to go. That last trip. Home by bus. It's the same exact mode of transport they started with.
But the context is worlds apart.
It's dark now. The sensory detail we get is that the city lights look beautiful.
Yeah.
And the last moments are just relaxed.
Yeah.
Sitting, listening to music.
This closes the strategic loop for the day on a note of intentional decompression.
Ah, so it was a mirror image of the morning.
In a way, yes. The morning bus was used to observe the external world to get ready for work. The evening bus, same vehicle, is transformed into a sanctuary.
The focus shifts inward.
Entirely. They're actively using music to create personal space. They're appreciating the city aesthetically, not operationally.
So the bus really acts as this mobile transition point twice.
That's a great way to see it.
Once to ramp up for the day, and once to gracefully land the day at night.
It's all about leveraging the mode of transport for the psychological state you need, regardless of the destination.
So if we pull this all together, this whole operational day, we see the commuter use 4 distinct modes.
Walking, the bus, the taxi, and the metro.
And they're managing time, money, and well-being across the entire cycle. But now I want to focus on the really practical stuff we can pull from this.
The core operational vocabulary.
Yes, the language.
And this is where a simple story like this is so powerful. It strips communication down to its most functional bits.
Right.
And we can pull out 5 phrases that really encapsulate the essential language of motion, need, and just checking the system.
Okay, let's go through them. Let's start with the one that defines the default state, the anchor. Number 1.
I take the bus to work.
What's so powerful about that phrase?
It does more than just state a fact. It establishes a behavioral pattern and a destination with maximum brevity.
It's your standard operating procedure.
It is. When you say that, you're communicating reliability, expectation. It's the phrase you use when your confidence in the system is high.
Okay. Next, the phrase for when that confidence fails and you need speed above all else. Number 2.
I need a taxi, please.
The emergency override.
That's exactly what it is. It's a command. It expresses an immediate, non-negotiable need, and it kicks off that high-cost, high-speed solution. It just cuts through all the complexity and signals urgency.
Just like our commuter did when they had to get to the bank.
Precisely. Its use signals the routine has been temporarily abandoned for a tactical intervention.
Okay, number 3. The phrase that defines what you're doing in between the bigger systems.
I walk to the station.
Why is that one so critical?
It's for coordination, for status updates. It expresses your current movement, and it implies you're about to transition to a larger system, like a metro or a train.
It's precise.
Very. It defines both the mode you're using and the target you're heading for. It's the linguistic bridge between systems.
All right, now for the phrase that is maybe the most crucial when you're facing uncertainty. Number 4.
Where does this bus go?
The big question.
It is the primary system validation check. You use this phrase when the routine is unknown, when the signs are confusing, or when you just need to confirm that the system is going to do what you think it's going to do.
It's about mitigating risk.
Exactly. Before you commit your time and energy to a bus line you're not sure about, if you don't know the answer to this, your whole operational plan is at risk.
And finally, number 5. The phrase that looks back, the evaluation.
The metro is fast and easy.
This one feels different.
It is. It's essential for sharing knowledge and for your own internal rating of the system. It expresses a judgment about efficiency, about reliability. It lets you communicate performance metrics to other people.
Like a friend or family member.
Yeah. It completes the cycle. It turns your experience into actionable advice for someone else.
What's really remarkable here is how these 5 simple phrases, they map perfectly onto the entire strategic day we just analyzed.
They do. They cover routine, need, intention, inquiry, and system evaluation.
The full spectrum of communication you need to navigate this kind of complexity.
It just goes to show that effective urban transit is really driven by functional language. If you can express these 5 ideas clearly, you've got the core operational language you need to manage almost any city's transportation network. #outro.
This has been a really fascinating deep dive.
Yeah.
We took a simple little story about a commuter's day.
And turned it into a manual.
A manual on resource management, strategic mode switching, and functional communication.
Yeah.
We mapped the daily flow, we found the tactical pivot points, and we distilled that core operational toolkit.
I think the biggest takeaway for me is just that consistent effort required to manage all these resources, internal and external.
Right. The money spent on the taxi to buy time,
The time spent walking to gain back mental energy.
and the choice of evening transit for social connection and decompression.
It's a constant balancing act.
And that leads us to our final provocative thought. Something for you to consider the next time you step out the door. We saw our commuter consciously value their emotional state. The quiet air during the walk, feeling relaxed after walking back from the bank, enjoying music on the final bus ride home.
So the question is,
Does choosing pure speed, like with the taxi or the metro, always provide the highest return on investment? Or are those slower modes, the walks, the reflective bus ride, are they actually more crucial to maintaining your psychological well-being throughout the rigorous demands of a city day?
so take a look at your own travel choices. Are you always optimizing for pure efficiency, or are you prioritizing your own resilience and maybe even your own peace?
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We'll see you next time.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Our whole mission here is to take the sources you are curious about, whether they're, incredibly complex or sometimes, like today, remarkably simple.
And we just deliver the core insights you need.
Yeah.
Fast, thorough, and in a way that actually sticks.
Exactly. So today we're doing a deep dive into the practical mechanics of self-discipline, behavioral change.
Yeah, huge topic.
Huge. And our source material is this surprisingly short story. It's just a little narrative called How to Be Disciplined.
Right, and on the surface it seems almost too simple.
It's so deceptive, but hidden inside is, it's basically a full manual on how to form habits, all seen through the eyes of one character, a guy named Adam.
Mm-hmm.
So our mission isn't just to summarize the story, it's to drill down, to extract the exact blueprint Adam used. We're looking for the actionable steps he took to go from wanting to change to actually changing.
The leverage points.
The leverage points. Okay, let's unpack this.
And, for you listening, this is probably one of the most critical topics we could even cover. We live in this world that's just saturated with information.
A constant flood of it.
Right. Articles, studies, ideas. But the real roadblock, the real limiting factor, it isn't a lack of knowledge. It's the inability to consistently apply it.
That's the gap right there.
It is. Discipline is the engine. It's what lets you structure your life to actually use the things you learn. Without it, all that knowledge just, sits there idle.
Okay, so let's get into the story. Let's meet Adam. His situation is, I think, the universal starting point for so many of us.
So relatable.
Totally. He's smart, he's capable, and his goals are really desirable. He wants to wake up earlier. He wants to get his work done on time.
And just feel more organized, right? More in control.
Exactly. These are things that would immediately, tangibly improve his life.
But he's trapped, stuck in that classic cycle of inertia. The source material just nails his core problem so perfectly. It says he always says, I will do it later.
Ugh. We all recognize that voice, don't we? That immediate resistance to doing the hard thing.
Yeah.
But how do we draw the line? How do we know when it's just prioritizing versus what Adam is doing, which is, truly damaging procrastination?
I think the distinction is all in the consequence. See, Adam's problem isn't just that he's postponing a task. It's deeper. It's this erosion of his self-trust.
Okay.
When the source says later becomes never, that's what it's capturing, the true cost. Every single time he fails to act on these little promises he makes to himself.
Like setting the alarm and actually getting up.
Right, or starting that project. He's just chipping away at his own belief and his ability to do things.
So the real penalty isn't even the unfinished work. It's the stress. The compounding stress of knowing he can't actually rely on himself. He's basically giving himself permission to fail every single day.
Exactly. And that compounding stress, that's the emotional trigger the source points to.
Yeah.
Adam only really commits to changing when the pain becomes acute.
When it's unavoidable.
Yes. He wakes up late again. He feels that horrible, stomach-dropping anxiety of being behind. And in that moment, the internal math just flips.
It's not a gentle inspiration.
Not at all. He realizes, I need to change. I want to be disciplined. It's a crisis, really. It's driven by the pain of staying the same, finally becoming greater than the pain of changing.
Okay, so he has the motivation now, the push to escape the pain. So what's the plan? And this is where, for me, the genius of his approach comes in. It's what he doesn't do.
Right. He doesn't go download some super complicated productivity app.
No. Or vow to suddenly work 12 hours a day. He chooses small steps and a simple plan.
And this is so critical for understanding cognitive load. The reason big resolutions almost always fail is because they trigger the maximum amount of resistance. They create so much friction.
So if Adam had said, I'm going to wake up 2 hours earlier and completely overhaul my entire life.
His brain would have just flagged it immediately as being too high cost.
Ah.
Too much effort. He'd have failed by day 2.
It's that paradox, isn't it? The biggest, most ambitious goals are the ones that lead to the fastest burnout.
Adam just instinctively sidesteps all of that by focusing on what you might call the minimum viable action.
Okay. If we connect this to the bigger picture, what's fascinating here is how his strategy attacks complexity itself. He builds this plan around 3 non-negotiable steps.
And each one is designed to be so small that, not doing it would almost feel ridiculous. Let's break down that first one.
Okay, step 1 was wake up 15 minutes earlier.
And it's the number, the 15, that is so important here.
Not an hour.
No. If he had chosen 60 minutes, he'd feel immediate sleep deprivation. That triggers fatigue, resentment, and he'd end up hating the whole project.
Yeah.
But 15 minutes, it's almost harmless to your sleep schedule, but it is psychologically profound.
Because it creates a buffer. That little 15-minute margin gives him time to actually start his day without the immediate stress of being late. He gets to win the first small victory of the day.
That margin is like armor against decision fatigue. He's not leaping out of bed straight into crisis mode. He's using that tiny window to establish a feeling of competence before the day's chaos even begins.
And that momentum rolls right into step 2.
Which is write a small to-do list.
Again, with that word small, it's such a crucial lever. We all know what a massive to-do list does to your brain.
It's paralyzing.
It paralyzes you. It just triggers overwhelm and sends you right back into that later becomes never cycle.
Right. And psychologically, this small list is Adam's way of managing something called the Zeigarnik effect.
Explain that.
Well, the effect basically says that incomplete tasks dominate our thinking. So if Adam has, say, 20 things on his list, those 20 open loops are just eating up his focus. But with a small list, maybe just 3 key items, he minimizes all that mental friction. The list becomes a defined container for his effort, not this endless landscape of potential failure.
A container for effort, I like that. And that leads right into his third step, which is a direct attack on, I think, the modern plague of inefficiency.
The multitasking myth.
Yes. His third rule was finish one task before starting another.
This is just a mechanism for forced, deep work. Adam clearly suffered from task switching, context jumping.
We all do.
We all do. And the research is clear. Every time you switch tasks, even just for a second to check an email, your brain pays a switching cost. You lose time and focus just trying to get back on track.
So by jumping between 3 different projects, he's just paying that mental tax over and over. But with this rule, he maximizes his flow, he finishes things faster, and he gets that rewarding little hit of crossing something off his small list.
He's using focused action to rebuild the self-trust he lost. Every single completed task is sending a message back to his brain. I am a person who finishes what they start.
Okay, so we have the trigger, the stress. We have this elegant, incremental plan, 15 minutes, small list, singular focus. The mechanics are sound. And here's where it gets really interesting. The source material doesn't paint this as some kind of miracle.
No, it grounds the whole process in reality. And the honesty here is so important. If you, the listener, assume that small steps mean it's going to be instantly easy, you're just setting yourself up for disappointment.
Because the story is explicit about it. The first day was not easy.
Not at all.
Dan was tired. He wanted to give up. And this is the moment, right? This is where the true nature of discipline shows up.
Yes, because the plan itself isn't what's hard. It's pushing through that initial, immediate physical resistance.
The urge to just roll over and hit snooze.
He had to fight that. And he had to remind himself of his core motivation. I want to improve my life. That long-term identity goal had to be stronger than the short-term discomfort of getting up 15 minutes early.
So that decision, that one moment of not quitting even when he was tired, that's the first real shift.
It is. It signals that the goal has finally become more important than the feeling of the moment.
And this leads us perfectly to the core lesson of the whole narrative. What Adam actually learns discipline is. Because I think we all have this image of discipline as this rigid, perfect, almost military-style routine.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, that's why so many people fail. They believe discipline means you have to score 100% every single day. The moment they have an 80% day, they just throw the whole system out.
And then right back to later becomes never.
It's that all or nothing thinking. It's a trap.
So what's the real definition? What did Adam discover?
The crucial insight from the story is this. Discipline is not about being perfect. That whole expectation of perfection is the enemy.
It's not about never stumbling.
No, not at all. It's the mechanism of recovery. Discipline is about trying again every day.
Okay, that changes everything.
It completely reframes the game. It takes failure and turns it from an endpoint into just a temporary pause. So you didn't manage step 1 today. Fine. You just return to the process tomorrow. You strip away the shame that comes with imperfection.
And you replace it with an expectation of just showing up again.
Daily recommitment. That's it.
And because he removed that pressure of having to be perfect, this positive feedback loop starts to kick in. Every day he follows his simple plan, and the story says little by little he becomes more disciplined.
He's not waiting for some huge transformation. He's celebrating the small daily win of just doing the thing.
Which then leads to the emotional rewards.
Exactly. He starts to feel proud. He feels strong. And this isn't just, some fluffy self-help idea. This is neurochemistry. The act of keeping these promises to himself, no matter how tiny the 15 minutes, finishing one task, it releases dopamine. It builds self-efficacy. That feeling of competence and control is the fuel that makes getting up on day 30 way easier than it was on day 1.
He's gone from being someone who just wishes they were disciplined to someone who consistently acts like a disciplined person.
And that feeling of regained control is the ultimate cure for the stress that started this whole journey. He's not running away from the pain of procrastination anymore.
He's moving toward the reward of self-competence.
And this just reinforces the core lesson. The profound results come from the cumulative effort of these small, specific actions followed every single day. The simplicity is what makes the consistency possible.
So for you, the learner, the roadmap is right there. The paralysis that comes from stress and just information overload.
Yeah.
It's not broken by some complex new system.
No.
It's broken by an incremental 3-part plan. It's about specific small actions. Find your 15-minute win to create that margin. Use a small list to cut down on the cognitive friction. And enforce singular focus to get into a state of flow.
Find your Adam moment, that point of emotional clarity that says, I have to change, and then just start tiny.
And always remember that foundational truth he uncovered.
Discipline grows slowly, one small action at a time. The effort is small. The consistency is everything.
So if discipline is really defined not by being perfect, but by that relentless commitment to trying again every single day, think about this. What crucial area of your life where you've previously aimed for some unrealistic perfect system and then quit? What area could benefit most right now from you just embracing a daily imperfect attempt? That's the question Adam's story really leaves us with.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. If you, like millions of other people, have spent time trying to master English, I think I know your biggest frustration.
Oh, yeah.
You can listen to, complex news reports. You can watch entire movies without even thinking about subtitles.
You understand everything. All the slang on social media, the fast-talking podcasts, everything. Your comprehension is like a 10 out of 10.
But the moment you have to actually participate, the moment you open your mouth to respond or ask a simple question,
the whole system just shuts down. It freezes.
Absolutely. It's that infuriating feeling where you know everything, but you just can't speak. It's like the knowledge is locked away.
And today, that's exactly what we're getting into. We're looking at source material that perfectly describes this psychological barrier and, more importantly, gives us the keys to unlock it.
That's right. We're using the story of a learner from the sources, a woman named Sarah, to reframe this really universal problem.
Our mission here is to help you quickly grasp why that speaking freeze happens, understand the core difference between, understanding and actually speaking, and walk away with 3 very specific, actionable habits to activate the English you already have.
Yeah, this isn't just theory, it's a practical blueprint. So first, we'll look at the emotional side of that freeze. Then we'll get into the key insight from Sarah's teacher about different muscles. And finally, we'll break down the 3 daily habits that, honestly, changed everything for her. Okay, let's unpack this.
So Sarah's story is it's the textbook definition of this whole problem. She'd have years of good, solid English classes. She was, like you said, an advanced consumer of English.
Like, huge vocabulary, knew all the grammar rules.
But it was all passive knowledge. It was just sitting there, filed away.
And what happens when you try to access those files under pressure?
The whole output system jams. The source material describes this so well. Inside, she knew the words, but outside, she was just silent. Her mouth froze. Her mind just went completely quiet.
It's not a knowledge problem. It's a performance anxiety problem.
Exactly. It's all driven by that one paralyzing thought.
What if I make a mistake?
That's the one.
Yeah.
The sources talk about her going to this little English cafe event, and right away she gets all the classic physical symptoms. Her heart is racing, her hands are shaking, but the root cause is all in her head.
You're talking about that internal editor, right? The little critic in your mind.
Precisely. That voice in your head that's constantly correcting and filtering and demanding perfection before you even say a word.
Which is just way too slow for a real conversation.
It's impossible. Fluent speakers let language flow automatically, but Sarah's brain had this overzealous editor sitting right on the pathway from thought to speech. So every single word gets checked and double-checked.
And when you freeze up like that, you just confirm your own worst fear. You tell yourself, see, I knew I couldn't do it.
And that just makes the anxiety worse for the next time. It's a spiral.
So in this cafe, this high-pressure place, how did she even take the first step with that internal editor just screaming at her?
Well, her teacher, Mark, he was really smart about it. He set the tone right away and said, look, you don't need perfect English. You just need to try. But Sarah, she couldn't just shake off the anxiety.
Of course not.
So she used this immediate coping mechanism, and it's actually a brilliant strategy for anyone just starting. You could call it a minimal viable output.
Minimal viable output. I love that. What did that look like for her?
It meant she forced herself to say just one-sentence answers, and she said them really softly, almost whispering.
So she wasn't trying to have a deep conversation.
Not at all. She was just aiming for proof of life. When she was introduced, she didn't give her whole backstory. She just said, my name is Sarah, and that was it.
That's such a critical detail. It lowers the stakes from, I have to impress everyone to just, I have to make a sound.
It bypasses the editor.
Yeah.
Just for a second. And the result of that tiny success, her partner smiled and said, that's great. Nice to meet you, Sarah.
And that little bit of positive feedback is everything. It breaks the cycle. It proves the world doesn't end if your sentence isn't perfect.
It's that first little push that starts building momentum.
But, okay, these small tactical ends are one thing. They get you through the first 5 minutes. But they don't solve the bigger problem of why her huge library of English wasn't actually usable.
Right.
This brings us to the core insight from Mark. And here's where it gets really interesting.
What's fascinating here is how Mark completely reframed the challenge for her. He moved it away from a culture of knowledge and made it about mechanics.
Mechanics.
He boiled it down to one single idea. Understanding English and speaking English use different muscles.
Different muscles. I mean, that takes all the pressure off, doesn't it? It means the problem isn't that you're not smart enough or you haven't studied enough.
Exactly. It's just a misalignment of training.
Yeah, it's like, I can read a book about how to play guitar. I can know all the theory, all the chords, but that doesn't mean my fingers know how to actually make the shapes on the fretboard.
That's the analogy he used. He said it's like listening to music versus playing music. You could be the world's biggest fan of, piano concertos. You know everything about them. But if you actually sit down at a piano,
your fingers won't know what to do. Nothing happens.
Nothing happens.
So the implication for a learner is just, it's unavoidable. It means all those years you spent watching movies and listening to podcasts, which is great, by the way.
It's fantastic for building your library.
But it only strengthens the receptive muscles, the listening muscles. It does absolutely nothing for the active, productive muscles that control your mouth and your tongue and your recall speed.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, this explains why so many advanced learners feel like they've hit a wall.
Right.
They keep trying to solve a physical problem with an intellectual solution. They think, oh, I just need to learn more vocabulary, when really the task is, I need to learn how to use the thousands of words I already know.
Okay, so once Sarah understood this, that she needed to train a whole new set of muscles, Mark gave her the actual workout plan, the toolkit.
Yeah, let's break down these 3 habits. They're so effective because of their simplicity. They don't require an audience. They don't require any prep.
And almost no time.
Right, which means they're specifically designed to get around that initial anxiety.
Okay, so habit number 1, 1 minute practice. This is the ultimate barrier remover. Every single day, you speak out loud for 1 minute. That's it.
The magic here isn't in the quantity. It's the consistency. 1 minute is so short you can't really make an excuse to skip it.
You don't even need a topic, right? You can just describe the room you're in.
Exactly. Describe the dust on your shelf. The goal is just activation, just to get the engine running no matter what comes out.
Okay, and habit number 2, shadowing. This is probably the most powerful technique for improving flow and rhythm. The source says to repeat after native speakers for just 30 seconds.
And that 30-second limit is so key. Shadowing means you repeat what you hear almost at the same time, copying the rhythm, the intonation, the sound of the language.
You're not focused on the meaning of the words at all.
No, you're bypassing the thinking part of your brain entirely. You're just training the physical machinery of your mouth. It teaches you how to link words together like a native speaker, which is a huge hurdle for a lot of people.
It's pure mechanical practice.
Pure mechanics.
And then habit number 3, talk to yourself. This one is great because you can do it anywhere, anytime. The instruction is to just narrate what you're doing.
Which creates these constant little micro practice sessions all day long. I am walking to the kitchen. I am opening the fridge. I am pouring a glass of water.
You're using essential high-frequency words in real-time context.
But without any fear of being judged because the only audience is you.
And it's the combination of the 3 that really works. You have the 1-minute practice for original thought, shadowing for the music of the language, and talking to yourself for constant activation.
And the sources show us just how powerful this was for Sarah. She started immediately. It says the very next morning, she stood in front of the mirror and just said, "Good morning. Today I will practice English."
And she even admits she felt a little silly doing it. She laughed at herself, which is such a relatable detail. If you feel weird doing this at first, you're probably on the right track.
You are. It means you're pushing past that self-consciousness that kept you trapped.
And the results were, they were fast, shockingly fast.
After just 1 week of doing these habits every day, she could speak for that full minute without stopping.
And within 2 weeks, she said she felt a huge shift. She just felt more confident.
But the real proof came after just 1 month. She went back to that same English cafe, the place where she first froze up and could barely whisper.
And this time,
The narrative says she spoke easily, naturally.
and she got that external validation too. Her friend Emma saw the change right away and was like, "Wow, Sarah, your speaking is improving so much."
And that just creates this positive feedback loop, right? It reduces the anxiety even more for the next conversation. And the whole journey ends with Sarah's big realization. The problem was never the English. The language was always inside her. It wasn't about learning more. It was about unlocking what she already had.
So what does this all mean?
I think the lesson is so clear. The knowledge you get from listening and reading is, it's like potential energy. It's stored up.
But fluency requires turning it into kinetic energy, into movement.
Exactly. You have to build the muscle memory through daily imperfect practice. You don't learn to perform by just watching from the audience. You have to get on the stage.
So for anyone listening who is stuck in that gap, you understand everything but you can't speak, the path forward is mechanical.
It is. Sarah's story proves that success doesn't require a perfect accent or flawless grammar. It just requires daily, low-stakes speaking practice, even for just 60 seconds.
The 1-minute practice, shadowing and talking to yourself. It's an accessible toolkit for anyone.
And here's a final thought for you to take away from all this. If fluency is about activating these speaking muscles through consistent, imperfect practice, think about another skill in your life that you've already mastered.
Like what?
It could be anything. Driving a car with a manual transmission, learning a difficult recipe, getting really fast at using a piece of software at work.
Okay, yeah.
You didn't master any of those things by just reading the manual once. You mastered them through awkward, repetitive, sometimes frustrating.
But always consistent.
Always consistent application. That feeling of awkwardness is part of the path to getting good at anything. So my question for you is, how can you take that mindset, that patience for imperfection that you already have for other skills, and apply it directly to your English speaking practice starting today? You already have the knowledge. You already know how to learn. You just have to redirect that focus.
Welcome to The Deep Dive, the show where we take a stack of information and give you the insights you need fast. You're here for knowledge that's, efficient and usable, and our mission is to cut right to the heart of the matter. Today's, I think, really fascinating because of its simplicity. We're not looking at some dense academic paper. Instead, we're analyzing a basic language guide. It's designed to help learners express feelings in easy English, all built around this short story of a character named Anna.
And if that sounds a little too simple, just trust us on this. The goal isn't just learning new words. What we're really doing here is looking at the psychological clarity you get when you pair a very basic emotion with a really concrete situation. It's a shortcut, not just to language, but to self-awareness.
I totally agree. That forced mapping, this thing happened, so I feel this way. That's the core insight. Okay,
Yeah.
let's unpack this. We can just follow Anna through her day, starting right from the morning. So it's 7:04 a.m. Anna wakes up, she looks at her phone, and right away, the source gives us 3 feelings she has. She feels tired and she feels sleepy, but, and this is the important part, she also feels calm.
That word "but" is doing so much work there. Sleepy, but calm.
You see, tired and sleepy, those are physical states, right? They're about your body lacking energy. But calm is totally different. That signals an emotional baseline. It's a kind of mental stability that exists despite the physical fatigue. And if you look at it from a cognitive angle, it's showing the value of separating those inputs. The language forces you to acknowledge the physical part, the tiredness, while also validating the mental state, the calmness. It raises a question, really.
Which is?
Is this calm her natural default state?
Right.
Or is it something she's actively doing to start her day? That's a great question. I wouldn't call it natural exactly.
Yeah.
Because calm usually implies a lack of disturbance, which kind of requires a mental boundary, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Maybe it's just that without any external stuff yet, no emails, no calls, her internal default is just stable.
Exactly. It's the absence of input. That's her baseline.
Right.
So any feeling that comes later, like stress or nervousness, can be traced back to something external. It immediately sets up this idea that we're rarely just one feeling at a time. We can be physically exhausted and mentally grounded all at once.
And that mental grounding is about to get a serious test because the story immediately moves to her commute, the outside world. So Anna leaves her quiet home, gets on the bus, and the description is very simple. The bus is full, too many people, and the feeling that results from that is immediate. She feels a little nervous.
Yeah, and that is a textbook example of how our environment affects our emotions. The nervousness isn't just some vague feeling floating around. It's tied directly to that lack of personal space, that loss of control in a crowded place. I mean, our brains are wired to see crowding as a potential threat. It triggers a very low-grade fight-or-flight response. You can't move easily, you're surrounded by strangers. That subtle threat assessment just translates directly into the simple word nervous. The guide gives you the equation. Packed bus equals nervousness. And knowing that trigger is the first step to managing the feeling.
Oh, absolutely. That low-level hum of anxiety when you're on a crowded train.
Yeah.
It's so common. But what if it's not about threat? Could it just be sensory overload, the noise, the people brushing past? Maybe nervous is just the easiest word for that discomfort.
That's a fair point. And yeah, in simple English, nervous can be a catch-all for I feel uncomfortable. But even sensory overload is often processed through the same neural pathways as threat. So the key takeaway for you listening is the same. The feeling comes from the outside. It's situational. You can solve it by changing a situation.
Perfect. So she can blame the bus, not herself. And now she gets to the office, and we move from that stressful environment to a positive social one. And it's a really quick emotional swing. Her boss sees her, just smiles and says good morning. And the shift is incredible. The text says Anna now feels happy and more relaxed. The bus nervousness, gone.
It's just a profound little moment, isn't it? It shows the immense power of social validation. That simple, positive interaction from her boss, it's like a neurological reset. She moves from the low-grade threat of the bus to a feeling of social safety.
Just from a smile.
Just from a smile. It signals acceptance, recognition. She's not just a body on a bus anymore. She's Anna. She's welcome. That small thing can literally shift her brain chemistry away from threat assessment and toward, productivity and calm.
So the happiness is situational, too, dependent on that approval. And then reality hits. The validation is followed by the workload. The guide says she has a lot of work, and her feelings shift again. She feels busy and a little stressed.
Yes, the classic workplace cycle. But the most important part of this whole work scene comes right after she identifies that stress. It presents a coping strategy. She's feeling stressed, but she's trying to stay calm.
That word "but." Again,
Yeah.
it's doing all the heavy lifting. It's about agency. She feels stressed, but she chooses to try for calm.
Absolutely. And the guide doesn't just leave it there. It gives her a tool. It says she takes a deep breath because, quote, it helps me feel better. That is just brilliant. It turns stress from this thing that happens to you into something you can manage with an action.
A concrete action.
A concrete action. The deep breath is a physiological tool. It engages the parasympathetic nervous system to slow her heart rate. It's practical self-care woven right into the story.
Does that raise a question? I mean, if she can fix it with one deep breath, was it really stress? Or was it just, a moment of anxiety about starting a big task?
That's a really important distinction. And you're right, chronic stress is a much bigger beast. But here, the stress is acute. It's that immediate feeling of pressure. The source is teaching a first-line defense, how to intercept that feeling before it spirals. The simple language, a little stressed, matches the simple solution, a deep breath.
That makes sense. It's a preventative measure.
Mm-hmm.
And that strategy carries her through to her lunch break, to some social safety. The scene shifts. Annis is sitting with her friend. They talk and they laugh. And this interaction leads to two really fundamental feelings. She feels comfortable and she feels safe.
And those two feelings are just. They're foundational. They're so important. You have to contrast this directly with the bus. The bus was unpredictable, threatening. A friend is the opposite. It's predictability, acceptance, security.
Right, comfortable and safe.
Comfortable means she can just be herself, no judgment. Safe means she's protected emotionally. These are, high-level psychological needs being described with the simplest words possible. It proves you don't need complex vocabulary to talk about fundamental truths.
And that boost from her friend seems to set her up for the afternoon. The narrative jumps to her finishing her work. And because she, quote, did a good job today, she feels proud of myself.
This is the loop closing on the work cycle. You see this direct link between effort, completion, and that feeling of self-efficacy. Pride is the reward for doing good work. And what's so powerful is the phrasing, proud of myself. It's internal. Her pride doesn't depend on her boss this time. It depends on her own judgment.
So it's not about external validation anymore.
Exactly. It's her own agency. This whole sequence, stress, coping, social safety, and then self-pride, is a perfect little roadmap for emotional regulation at work.
And that roadmap, that cause and effect for every feeling, brings us to the end of her day. Anna is back home. She's making tea, sitting on the sofa. And the feelings now are relaxed and thankful. This is that peace that comes after a long day. But the real climax of the story is her final reflection. She thinks about her day, acknowledges that not every feeling was good, and then she concludes, that is okay.
That is okay. That line is everything. It leads right to the single most important sentence in the whole guide. Feelings change. And that one idea reframes everything that came before. The tiredness, the nervousness, the stress. They weren't permanent states. They were just temporary passing moments tied to specific situations.
So that nervousness on the bus, if she believed that was just who she was, a nervous person, the day would have been awful.
Precisely. The acceptance that feelings are impermanent is what strips them of their power. By naming the feeling, linking it to a source, the bus, the work, and then seeing it pass, we stop identifying with the feeling. You're not a nervous person. You're a person who feels nervous on a crowded bus. That distinction is everything.
It's a fantastic summary of the whole journey. And the guide actually boils this down for the listener with 5 key practice phrases from Anna's day. So let's just quickly review them. Number 1 is just simply, I feel happy. 2, the situational anxiety. I feel nervous. 3, the physical state. I feel tired today. 4 is that really sophisticated one. I feel stressed but calm. And 5, the self-efficacy. I feel proud of myself.
And that simple list just wraps it all up. The core message is, well, it's undeniable. Talking about your feelings helps you speak English better, yes, but it also helps you understand yourself better. The language becomes a tool to analyze your own internal world. And for anyone, that is a profound return on investment for, 5 simple phrases?
So what does this all mean for you? Well, this whole deep dive, taken from a seemingly basic language lesson, gives you a clear, simple map for understanding your own daily emotional reality. We took something simple and found a blueprint for emotional intelligence inside it, respecting your time while maximizing insight.
And here's a final thought for you to mull over, building directly on that core idea that feelings change. If we accept that, then how does the simple act of naming a difficult feeling, just saying, I feel stressed, how does that, even without fixing a problem, immediately reduce its power over you? Does naming it turn it from an internal crisis into an external thing you can just look at? We encourage you to explore that simple clarity for yourself.
Absolutely. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into the power of simple words. We'll catch you next time.